Morning, Coach. How's it going?
I'm doing well, Coach. Yourself?
Not too bad, not too bad. So we've got the upcoming season.
All right.
We've got a number of incoming recruits.
Okay.
So I think there might be a few challenges there. We're going to have some guys that are going to be competing for the same spots.
All
right. So with this upcoming season and so many spots up for grabs, I thought maybe today what we could do is we could kind of take a look at maybe some of the challenges that might come up.
Okay.
How's that sound to you?
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, when we talk about how groups develop, there's a number of models that look at that process and explain some of the things that groups will encounter. We can look at it from a linear perspective. Okay. We can look at it from a cyclical perspective or a pendular perspective. Okay. So let's look at one of the very first models that was developed on group development. And it was actually introduced by Bruce Tuckman in 1965. And it's actually a linear model. Okay. Are you familiar with this model?
I am.
All right.
I enjoy this one.
There you go. There you go. So let's start out. So here we have all these incoming recruits, okay. And when they first come on campus, they're going to be getting to know one another. They're just going to be feeling one another out. It's just what we're going to call that forming stage, right?
Okay. So does that include us in this conversation? So like when their athletes are getting used to us, this is like the whole forming pattern.
It very well can. Absolutely. Right, so it's not just the athletes coming together. They're coming in contact with all their coaching staff and the administrators, and so it's just the team process kind forming. Okay. So from there, what we're going to do is they go from forming into the storming stage. So how about you take on the storming stage?
Well, this part's interesting because you've got competitive people that are coming to a team, and you have people that kind of like the big fish in the small pond. Absolutely. Now that's kind of reversed, and now they're just one of several players.
Sure.
So then you have three people that are trying to compete for their starting position. Let's say starting point guard.
Absolutely.
What are the challenges there? How are they going to get along? How are they going to resolve the fact and resolve it with you and I as the coaches to be able to get that position and then accept that position, right?
Absolutely.
So what's gonna happen? Like, is it gonna be? So when they say storming, is it gonna be like clouds and rain, like that type of gloom and doom?
So we see a lot of conflict in this stage, a lot of locking horns. Yeah. I think of it as having too many captains on one ship.
Sure.
So when you have too many people trying to take charge and take the lead, it can create a lot of conflict on the team. So if you and I are competing for that starting point guard position, and in my mind, I know I'm better than you.
That's probably true. Yeah.
But in your mind, you're better than me.
Okay.
So that can create a lot of issues off the court.
Okay.
So maybe we're really locking horns on the court and we're battling, and maybe that's a good thing. But then I'm talking trash about you off the court. Sure. What does that do to the team dynamics? Okay. So that storming stage is a real challenging stage for us as coaches. Yeah. So as we anticipate these players coming in, that we know that is a normal part of the group development process. Okay. So it's not anything to be feared necessarily, but Tuckman believed that it was a very necessary and essential part of that group process.
Sure. Okay. Then what's this norming one then?
So the norming stage is what comes after the storming. So it's kind of like the calm after the storm. So so in that sense, we just went through all this team conflict. And as the team sorts through that, so if we are those two players who are battling over that point guard position, as we battle, most likely, social psychology is going to suggest that the closer we are to one another, the more time we spend around one another, more we get to actually liking one another.
Sure.
So in that norming stage, what's actually happening is the team is starting to come together. Yep. You're starting to figure out roles. You're starting to figure out some of the team culture. The team's starting to bond in that stage.
Okay. So these kind of remind me of like movies. Like I'm big on kind of understanding it in movies. So I'm thinking of like Remember the Titans.
There you go.
Or Miracle.
Absolutely.
And you've got them first being put together, then all of a sudden there's storming. And in the case of storming with Miracle, they don't like Herb Brooks initially.
Absolutely.
And they also don't like the players from Minnesota don't like the players from Massachusetts. And
Absolutely.
How do they come together?
Yep.
Then once they kind of start realizing that, okay, we have a common goal here, this is what we need to do, then it kind of normalizes, or it's a norming
Absolutely.
Process, and then the focus is then on the fourth stage.
Then
here.
you're going into performing, and that's an excellent example about Miracle. So as the team is starting to move from norming into performing, you saw a really interesting example in that movie of the player that was not originally on the team that Coach Herb Brooks tries to add to the team.
Sure.
And what happened to the team when they tried to add that new player.
Didn't like it.
They didn't like it at all.
He's not family.
Exactly, exactly. So if that player would have been added in that forming or that storming stage particularly, it would have created additional conflict.
Okay.
But especially now that we're moving from that norming into performing, this is where the team is really starting to hit their stride, isn't it? So in that case, the team is really focused on their task goals, their outcome goals, and they're really figuring out how they work best together.
Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So then this last one, can you talk about that? This was added about 12 years later.
Sure.
So 1977, Tuckman added this one.
So Tuckman's original model was this 4-stage model: forming, storming, norming, and performing.
All right.
What they added in the late 70s was this idea that not every group or not every team is together for their entire life cycle. Sure. In other words, but that many teams will break up or they have a natural ending to them, and that might be on a season basis, an annual basis, or it could be even longer. But that's a normal part of the process. Is that therefore to be a natural end to that process?
All right. Makes sense.
Sure. So, Coach, as we kind of focus on this upcoming season, what do you think might be one of your takeaways from this model?
Well, I think that it's natural, and that you don't have to kind of shy away from it. There's going to be some competition. There's going to be some conflict.
Sure.
And it's how do you resolve that conflict in order for the team to be able to develop over time.
Mm-hmm. So that is one of the advantages, that it is a fairly simple model to understand. It's a natural process. Storming isn't anything to be feared or shied away from. But maybe one of the critiques of this model is that it is linear, that it seems to be a step-by-step process, that every team goes from forming to storming to norming, whereas other critics might look at that and say, well, there are teams out there that maybe they don't have a storming stage.
Or they just stay there.
Exactly. Okay. Or that in this linear perspective, we automatically move from one stage to the next. We constantly over time continue to develop. But what about those teams that regress? Sure. Get to storming and can never move on to that norming stage. So there certainly are some advantages of a model like this, but then there's going to be other disadvantages of the model.
So what's another model that we should look at next?
So maybe in the next video, we'll kind of take a look at maybe a cyclical perspective or a pendular perspective. And this one was, as we mentioned, it was more of a linear perspective.
Great.
How's that sound to you?
All right.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
See you guys next time.
Sounds good.